We are at 6:30, so I would like to call to order the annual meeting of the School District of Sevastopol. And I would ask Mrs. Beery to read the call of the meeting.
Notice for the annual meeting of the School District of Sevastopol. Notice is hereby given to the qualified electors of the School District of Sevastopol that the annual meeting and budget hearing of said district for the transaction of business will be held in the all-purpose room of the Sevastopol School on the fourth Tuesday, being the 26th of August, 2014, at 6:30 in the evening.
Thank you, Lisa. And some introductions, although I hardly think we need introductions. Everybody knows everybody here, but we'll do that formal piece. You just heard from Mrs. Beery, school board member. Jane Luker, school board member. Jay Zahn in the back, school board member. Where's Mark is there in the back as well. And we will be hearing soon from the two principals, Mr. Baer, middle school, high school principal, and Mrs. Donaldson, elementary principal, special ed director, rocket launcher, whatever. And we have Rock Lottenbach here, we have Linda Waite, and we have Kathy Marshall, and Lisa Bly, and do we have anybody else out there? I guess that's it.
The cameraman.
Oh, Laddie, yes, she's hiding on me, Laddie. Okay. And at the table on the far right, Cindy Visti, our business manager, Dr. Linda Underwood, our superintendent, and right next to me, Randy Nesbitt, our attorney, to keep us on track for the evening, to make sure that we are all legal here. Our next order of business is the election of a chairperson for this meeting. And I would announce that nominations for the chairperson for the evening are in order. Do we have any nominations? Jay?
I'll nominate Linda Wade. I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second to have Linda Waite serve as our chairperson. She has done this in the past for us. Are there any other nominations?
Can I move to close nominations?
All right, we have a motion to close the nominations. Did you want to cast a unanimous ballot?
Yes, I would love to.
All right. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, Linda is our chairperson. Linda, come on up. You are experienced at that.
Thank you.
Don't talk about rigged elections on camera.
All right, moving on down the agenda. The next item would be approval of the previous minutes from the annual meeting of August 20th, 2013.
And they should just stand approved as presented, rather than
We
ask for
don't
a
need a
motion.
motion?
Don't need a motion.
All right. Our attorney tells us we do not need a motion, so they will be approved as presented. Next item, number 6, the auditor's reports, 2013, 2014.
And that should be a motion to accept the auditor's report.
I would entertain a motion to accept the auditor's report.
I move that we accept the 2013-2014 auditor's report.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Item number 7, the 2013-2014 financial report.
Dr. Underwood.
That's me. You have the financial report with the columns in your pamphlet there, but we also have extracted a few highlights that might help. how we ended the 2013-2014 school year. And as you can see here, this is the budget that was adopted in 2013. And there actually are some differences here from the budget that we looked at during the annual meeting in August. We get our student enrollment from the state, they firm up everything, we have our taxes. And so this is what the budget was that was adopted. At that point in time, we anticipated that we would need to take $260,000 out of fund balance in order to have a balanced budget. But as you can see, as we went through the year, we didn't spend as much as we thought we needed to. And I'll show you why. The result was that at the end of the year, we had a surplus of $415,000. Now, I would much rather have a surplus than have a deficit. That's but here's why it worked out. We had some pretty significant under expenditures. And frankly, we don't spend money unless we need to, unless we've planned to. We're not going to spend money just because we have it. If it's in the budget, we do it. If something comes up that we can't, we shouldn't, we don't have to, then we don't, because you never know what's going to happen in April, May, and June. So here are some of the categories, and these are the big ones, that were underspent in the 13-14 budget. Between school board and legal, we had a balance of $28,000. Our health benefits over $72,000, and that's because we have to budget what we think is going to be the high for those health benefits, since we have to offer. If people change what their health benefit is, then there's savings, and this is what's showing up here. We had $69,000 in buildings that we didn't spend, and $27,000 in sites. And I'll tell you, a lot of that is related to a long winter and no spring. There were projects that we had scheduled for spring that we just couldn't do because, well, there wasn't a spring. And we also saved some money in athletic salaries. We had the money budgeted, but didn't need all of those coaches and officials that were budgeted. We also had some additional revenue that when we prepared the budget, we didn't know this revenue was coming. We had about an additional $10,000 in grants, Medicaid. And even though we do reporting and filing, we never know how much money we're going to get, and we never know when we're going to get it. As a matter of fact, I think this was from 2010. So you don't know. So $44,000 in Medicaid, and we did not have that budgeted at all as a revenue. $5,700 in lieu of taxes, insurance dividends. We got $10,000 more in E-rate than we anticipated. $4,600 came to us from what was left in flex accounts, and sales and admissions were $2,500 higher than what we thought it would be. Now, these are some high points. Know that throughout the whole budget, there's $100 here and $700 there and $50 here. You add all of that together, and it is even a greater amount that we didn't spend because we don't spend it unless we have to. When we have money left at the end of the year, it goes into our fund balance. The fund balance is there if we have an emergency. The fund balance is there so that we can get a good deal if we need to do short-term borrowing, or if, as we did this year, we applied for and received a line of credit rather than doing short-term borrowing. This past year, our use of the fund balance was only to support change orders in the energy efficiency project. We set the energy efficiency project, that was rolled into all of our planning. We had some change orders that weren't part of that big plan, so when the change orders were approved, it was with the understanding that it would come out of the fund balance. As it worked out, we did well when we got to the bottom line. This is what our fund balance would look like from 2 years ago, last year to this year. And the fund balance in that far right-hand column is $3,741,318.96, and that is the equivalent of 37% of our annual expenses. So it's a solid fund balance for us. It's where it should be. Questions? Correct.
No, I do have a question.
Okay.
Where you were under budget in the expenses,
Mhm.
and looking at the budget as proposed, so insurance and things like that and salary, does that all fall under support services?
No, it's throughout the budget. For example, a big chunk of the health benefits, some would have come from instruction. Some of those would have come from, I think we had a lot in bus drivers. And so they come from here and there. To get the health benefits, the 72,000,
Mhm.
I went through all of the sections of the budget and added up the big numbers to say it's about $72,000. So it cuts across all of those
All of
categories.
the categories,
Yeah.
all of the expense categories.
Other questions? Excellent. Thank you.
So we can move on to the state of the district
Right.
report?
Sorry. Jack in the Box time. There are three of us that are going to do this together. Adam Bear, who's the middle school and high school principal, and Mary Donaldson, who's our elementary principal and director of special ed. And when we talked about this, we decided that we didn't want to jump up and down like Jack in the Boxes. So I'm going to do some, Adam's going to do some, Mary's going to do some, and we're all available to answer questions as we get to that point in any of them. I just need to find what I did with this now. All right. What we like to do with this is we take this opportunity to share with people what we're really proud of this year, how our students are doing, what we're looking forward to the next year, and what some of the challenges are. And so we're going to be going through those. We have district and school-wide goals that we work from. The school board sets a mission and goals. Our schools then set goals, and then we work toward those goals throughout the year, and then they feed on up to the district at the end of the year. The highlights of the year and what we're looking forward to as we come into the next year. And now I turn it over to Mary.
Thank you. It's nice this year to have been here in order to do this. Last year when we did this, I'd only been here a month, and Adam helped me a lot. But we dressed alike, Adam and I, tonight, so I'm glad. Help me with these. In addition to, a school is also a business and an education. And it's really nice to follow up the business part here to see how sound we are. And that's a really nice way to go into, okay, what about the education part of it? Our first goal was to have students be proficient or advanced on state math and English assessments. That is the goal that we strove to. How did we get there? What did we put in place every single day in order to reach that goal? One of the things was an alignment of what we're teaching from K through 12. What is being taught in language arts and math at the kindergarten, first grade level, all the way up to 12th grade. And that's what we did this year. We put together, we have the document established, and we will work on revising that document so we can have cross-communication. Identified best practices. What truly increases learning among children? What's out there that we can use to increase learning? And we worked on those. Performance assessments. What we mean by performance assessments is how are we doing? We don't wait till the end of the year to say, okay, here we are. How are we doing after a month, after 2 weeks, after 4 weeks? And then sitting down with the teams and studying that data and making the changes right there. All the years I taught, we taught out of a book. We got to the end of the year. We shut the books up. We did our grades and we went home. What has changed is we stopped along the way with collaborative teams, administrate the assessments, and then talk about them. What can we do differently along the way? So that's what we did a lot this year. Then when we get the data, we have a group of children who aren't getting something. What do we do? And that's where interventions come in. How do we change what we're teaching in order to meet their needs instead of just going forward? We stopped and we did that. We did a lot of volunteer network. The greatest growth of learning comes from one-on-one instruction. And when you have a classroom of 22, 23, it's awfully hard to do that. Having volunteers come in the classroom and do that has been wonderful in order to accomplish our goals. What? What? You're supposed to help me out.
Arrow.
Come on, we didn't dress alike for nothing. Aligning our content so that, thank you, Adam. We work really well together. As one of the highlights of the year should be is Adam and I working together. Aligning the curriculum so we know what we're talking about. Education is one of those things where you can go all day and never talk to another adult. Okay, because we go to our classrooms, we're with our kids, we eat with our kids, we stay in the classroom when we go home. There are days where we can't. So we don't know really what's being taught in first grade and second grade. So by aligning it, especially in the area of literacy, we allowed for professional development, revising the curriculum, and developing performance goals. And at the high school level and the middle school level, that's something that goes cross-curriculum. You can talk about literacy in science and in social studies and in math and in reading and in English. So at the high school, they spent a lot of time on the literacy. K-12, we increased effective use of data to inform decisions. Data is so objective, and it allows us to really talk about what's going on without talking about the teacher or the person. So you can sit down in one classroom and say, wow, your kids scored great in fractions. How did you do that? Your kids are really reading above grade level in the comprehension. How did you do that? So we did a lot of using data to change our instruction, to change our grouping, and to choose our curriculum based on data. A lot of professional development on how to deal with the kids that need more help. And we had identified appropriate sources of data. Because there are a lot, that's the big word out there now is data. And we could use a lot of assessments that are out there and spend a lot of money, but we didn't. Our staff used what was available and shared a lot of it. We piloted a lot last year in the forms of data and using that. This one? Oh, it's your turn. There.
I know the arrow.
You know the arrow?
I'm going to do the next few because they're about really our environment, our culture, how we communicate with, and how we work with our community. And even though we list here only one environmental goal, which was our energy efficiency project, which is at an end, I think as you go around the building or look around the outside of the building, you can see that we're doing some things to preserve the asset, to make it a friendlier place, to make it a safer place. So we have been working slowly to make the improvements that we need to in our building and throughout our facility. Under school personnel, we also had some pretty ambitious goals. We wanted to make sure that we recruited, developed, and retained high-quality staff. And as our new staff have joined us over this past week, it is evident that we really did get some high-quality people to come in and join our team. We also are being able to retain our staff. They certainly are a part of that team. They're what makes everything happen, and so that recruit, develop, and retain. Recruitment, we expanded our teacher mentor program. We've done a lot of staff development in Common Core, state standards, in assessment, in some specific and general areas of special education, a lot in technology. So staff development is just part of our conversation every day. And lastly, we developed an alternative compensation model that staff developed so that it would more accurately reflect what people actually do on a day-to-day basis rather than longevity. Communication was another one of the goals, and that's where we really wanted to make sure that our message was consistent, elementary, middle, and high school, that it was very clear, that things were transparent so that the public, the community, close and far, would understand completely what we were about and what we were doing. improve the newsletter, increase the outreach and the give and take on that, and we also have a draft communication plan ready to go into this year. And somehow this one got out of sequence, sorry about that. The community, we wanted to be the community center. That was one of the board's goals last year. And as part of that, this last year we started our community courses. We had over 140 adults from the community participate in those courses, led by our staff. And if the feedback that we've had from our summer newsletter saying we're getting ready to start the community courses again, if the feedback from that is any indication, we're going to have to double the number of courses that we had this past year. This facility is used extensively by the community. Highlights.
Thank you. I'd like to start by just thanking our community for the opportunity to serve our students. We have a wonderful community, rich resources, and within our community we have a wonderful student body, and that's our biggest strength. I truly believe that. As a school district, though, there are several indicators that we need to look at that demonstrate our students' performance and their proficiency in certain areas. So I'm going to go through some of the indicators that we can look at to see how our students are succeeding within our school. A lot of schools are going to use this type of data. Annual report cards are now available to us. I'm going to go through them in a little bit more detail. But this is a new, relatively new reporting process for us. We're in our third year of using those school report cards. Our WKC, or our state assessment, current state assessment, is also an indicator. It's a good indicator because it's used across all the school districts and all the students are tested. So we'll look at some of that information as well today. And then our ACT scores. That demonstrates our juniors' readiness for college level coursework. So we'll look at all that information. The first thing that I have for you is I have the state report card information, and I really wanted to break this out so you can look at a school report card and understand some of the data that's there. This information is available to us. This is the second report card that we received. We will quickly be receiving our third report card, September 16th. That has not yet been released. So the information that you're looking at is a little bit outdated. This information is actually from the 2012-13 school year. I could go into more detail as to how high school did, middle school did, elementary did, but I think it's more important that you look for that information come September 16th when it's going to be available to all of us. But indicators that you might look for. First thing, we've talked about student performance before, and it's always assessment driven. That's not necessarily the case anymore. There's more information available to us, and I think it's really, really helpful. So I want to break that out for you. The first indicator, and there's 4 primary indicators, is student achievement. That is your reading and math achievement. That's that assessment information. But in addition to that, we also look at student growth. We want to see where our students started and where they ended at the end of a year, okay, at the end of a term. So student growth is another measure that's included in our state report card. Another indicator is closing the achievement gap. That indicates where our regular ed population is in comparison to our special populations. We want to see them in the same place as far as achievement. If there are gaps that exist, we make great effort, and that's where that data comes in, and that's where that professional practice comes in to help them achieve at the same rate. So it's an important indicator, and I would ask our community to be part of that conversation that helps all kids succeed here at Sevastopol. It's very important to us. And then on track and post-secondary readiness. So we're starting to look at some great information. Are our students in school every day? What is their reading and math achievement at certain grade levels? What's their ACT performance? Are they ready for what's after high school? So that is all wrapped into our school report card. So I'd ask that you take a closer look at that. In this data, again, reminding you that it's a little bit old, our school district receives a score, and we were in the exceeds expectation for all 3 buildings. When you break out the individual schools, for this year, for this calendar year, we actually had 2 schools out of our 3 that performed in the significantly exceeds category, which is an exceptional accomplishment. There's 2,112 school districts, or schools, I'm sorry, as part of this report. We were part of 86, or 5% of the schools in the state of Wisconsin that had the significantly exceeds expectations. So that's a great accomplishment for our kids and for our staff. Another indicator is our students' WKC performance. This is our state assessment. And this information is more relevant, more recent, I should say. These tests were taken in October, November of 2013. Right, 2013. And what I'm showing you here is a comparison And it's probably hard for Laddie to pick up this information, so I'll try to walk through it just briefly for you. We're looking at reading scores, and this is a comparison by our conference, our athletic conference. This would be available, and you can get this as a download off of the internet. But what you're looking at is performance in reading in grades 3, 4, 8, and 10. And there's a red line on here, and that's the state average. Okay, Sevastopol's scores, student scores, are the black line on the graph. If you take a close look at this, you'll see that Sevastopol led all county schools, all conference schools, in 4th, 8th, and 10th grade, with a significantly higher average than the state. So our students are performing well. And I also appreciate the trend of increased reading achievement in our schools as students continue their coursework. I have the same graph that makes the comparisons in mathematics achievement. Again, we look at the grades where kids are tested in all content areas, and that's 4th, 8th, and 10th. And you can see again that Sevastopol students are represented in the black bar graph, and they did lead the conference in both 8th and 10th grade in math achievement. The next indicator of student success is our ACT score. These scores represent our senior, our graduating classes scores, and an average is taken. If you take a look at these scores, there's 2 lines on here. The first line is our school's performance, and this is the last 7 years from 2008 until 2014 current scores, which were just released. In red here, I have another line that indicates the state average. The state of Wisconsin was the second highest achieving state in the nation on ACT scores, with an average score this year of 22.2. Okay, that's an exceptional accomplishment. I believe Minnesota was the leading state, but Wisconsin was the second leading state on ACT scores. If you take a look at what is a very good average, and then look at where our Sevastopol students are performing, it really shows that our students are doing quite well in their college readiness, preparatory work as well, and they achieved quite well here. Most recently, there was an article released that indicated that Sevastopol again led all conference schools in ACT achievement. And I say again because they led last year as well. So our students are doing very well on this test. We're testing a number of kids. This year we tested 61% of our student body. This will be the first year actually though that this test will be used for all juniors, and all juniors will be tested in March. So we will see how that changes the state average, but our local average as well. But this indicates tremendous performance by our students, and the important thing to understand about ACT is this is opportunities for our kids. Okay, this leads to scholarships. It opens doors to college. It opens doors to higher education. So it's really important, not only for our school, but for our students to achieve their very best on this test. And so we do a lot of work to prepare them to be proficient on these courses, but also those freshman level college classes that they'll be taking. This is something that I'm really excited about. I've been part of Sevastopol School District in the community for 14 years. And of my 14 years here, very few years I remember where we had an increase in school enrollment. I know that it's always been something that we've looked at. But for the last 3 years, we've seen an increase in our total school enrollment. This year, we're expecting to have 595 students in our K through 12 building, which is an increase of 37 students from last year. So our enrollment went up by almost 40 students. And as I indicated, I've been here for 14 years, and I can only remember a handful, 4 or 5 times where we've increased enrollment, and 3 of those years have been the last 3 years that I've been in this position. So it's wonderful to see our enrollment, our community grow, and our students here in the building. From all these things, there are a few highlights that I'd like to point out. One, Sevastopol High School was recognized as one of America's best schools according to U.S. News and World Reports for the 2nd straight year. It's a great accomplishment, and it's definitely an honor for our high school staff and students. Sevastopol Destination Imagination Team had 6 teams. Kathy's in the audience. I think did we have 7 total, or did we just have 6? We had 6 teams that competed this year. They all went on to the state level, and we had 3 of those teams go on to the global level. So it shows that our gifted programs are doing very well, and our kids are doing well as part of those. School enrollment, as I indicated, has increased significantly over the last 3 years. And Sevastopol Elementary, Middle, and High School all met or significantly exceeded the state's expectations on those report cards that I talked about earlier. So these are some indicators that really show that our teachers, our community, and our parent support, everything they do for our school, is really put us in a very positive place that we should all be proud of. All right. Mary's got a few more accomplishments that she's going to talk about.
I guess one of the highlights that I've realized by being here is the Sevastopol community. Adam mentioned the parents, but being here in this school, the high-quality teachers, the custodial staff, the bus drivers, the lunch crew, everybody here works together to do this. So the things that I'm listing behind this are a wonderful group of people that resulted in the middle school being the 5th and the high school being the 19th in the top 20 highest performing schools in the whole state. That's incredible. And on state assessments out of more of 450 districts. This summer, last summer we only had 80 children here. They said people in Door County don't want to come to school during the summer. It's a tourist place. Well, over 200 participated. We could have had another 100 as we increased our enrichment opportunities. They want to be here. This is a community center. Our lunch program was a huge success, which was paid for by a grant. It was a federal grant that came in, and we experienced free and reduced lunches for everyone. Everyone didn't have to pay, but the food was fresh. We had fresh wraps, we had fresh fruit every day. For breakfast, we had eggs, and we had just a really nice place for people not only to come and learn, but also to eat. Integration of technology. This district spent a lot of money in technology last year. Thank you. It is so nice to go anywhere in this building and you have wireless. It doesn't shut down. You have children going with laptops and iPads and learning. But the thing about technology with all these programs that we've gotten in here, and I watched it last year at the elementary, while children are working on technology, it allows the teacher to work one-on-one or one-on-two with small groups. And that's where you see the excess in achievement. That's what happens when you integrate technology and allow that to happen. We have new state accountability assessments coming in. Smarter Balanced Assessment. We spent a lot of time on getting ready for that. It's not a multiple guess test anymore. It is higher level thinking. It is problem solving. It is writing. That's what we're looking forward to. And also the educator effective system. We need to work with our teachers on their professional growth. And that's what the educator effectiveness system does. We set goals this year. Student learning objectives backed by professional goals that we will work on there. Is that you?
I did it right. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things is the achievement gap. You heard Adam talk about that Wisconsin has the highest ACTs, Minnesota has the highest ACTs, but they also have the highest achievement gap in the whole United States of the kids that are succeeding and the kids that aren't. We have that here. We have children who are ELL, who are special ed, who are free and reduced, that there is a gap between their achievement and the students that are not. And so we're working on that. School-wide literacy. Adam's done an incredible job at the middle and the high school talking about literacy. Of course, elementary has always been literacy, but having a K-12 focus on it is something we're working on. Educator effectiveness. Again, teachers need time to profess their profession, to get better at what they do. And this is a wonderful program for that to happen. Assessment. How do we know that we're doing it? How do we know that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing? You can't do it unless you purposely assess where you're going. So those are the 4 areas that we're going ahead. What we mean by closing the achievement gap, really looking at blocks of time during the day where children work on specific things that they need to work on. So you take a guided reading book and you divide children into 4 or 5 groups. Very similar to the one-room classrooms that used to be around here. How do you teach to all those different levels? Just because they're in 3rd grade doesn't mean every child's reading at a 3rd grade level. We've got 40 new children coming in. We don't know where they are. So by designing blocks during the day to teach at their level, that works. At the high school, they've added an Algebra Plus level. So children who aren't ready for the algebra class also have an Algebra Plus, which is smaller sizes to work with. The freshman transition. going from 8th grade to being a freshman, it's a transition time, and allowing those to happen. The differentiation is what I talked about. Volunteers. I love that our high school goes down and works with our elementary. I love seeing kindergartners and 12th graders working together all over this building. We have high school students who come back and their mentors are their first grade teacher. Also, that's the Star Catchers. And the newsletter is being read because I've had 7 people either email or call me from reading the newsletter wanting to come in and volunteer. So that program is going strong. And again, out of the Star Catchers last year, only 10% had relatives in the building. So that's something, everyone graduates from here and comes back and goes to school here. But Star Catchers is bringing another population in. The RTI just means students, we used to refer them and send them someplace else. RTI means what can I do in my classroom to reach all the levels of the kids? So what can we share across grade level for that? The GED program at the high school, allowing children to obtain their high school degree through a different method. All day 4K. Thank you for that. It's not a lot, shoving more down to 4K. It's slowing the day down. They come, they have breakfast, they learn together, developmental play, they eat together, they have music, they have library, they have phi ed, all of those things. They have rest time, and then they go home. So the all-day 4K is a huge foundation, because as you know, not every child comes into 4K with the same background. Integrated early childhood, we used to pull out our children who had special needs. We're pushing them in with the adult support, with the aides in the classroom. Pioneers with a Purpose is something we're doing this year. The first day we're doing the ALS challenge, if you'd like to come and do it. But the idea of, in addition to the data that we've talked about, in addition to the interventions we've talked about, Pioneers with a Purpose is what can you do to make a difference in your community, in your classroom, in your school. So that's something else we're going to be working on. We have hired this year an ELL teacher who came from China. So he's been teaching ELL for a while and really taken the academic focus. We have a very strong relationship with our Latino families. Now the academic part, we're bringing that in. The language acquisition, working with the teachers so they understand that, strengthening the academic focus, and then we hired people from the community to do the interpreting. We've had wonderful Spanish teachers in the past year doing it, but having someone that lives in that community coming in and being part of the team, they can talk and communicate in a safe manner, and we've gone far with that communication, enhancing that part.
Thank you, Mary, I appreciate it. Just want to take a little bit of time to talk about student literacy, because it can be misunderstood. We might think that that's our English teacher's responsibility to teach reading to our students, but literacy is really much broader than that. Some of the most challenging texts that our students deal with or have to work with is informational text. So the mechanics in our community are reading some of the most high-level text available to any of us. So it's important that we talk about that and have that conversation. But literacy, there's objectives that allow us, and what we're really trying to share with our teachers and have our teachers be part of with our students is that it's important for them to read a science textbook like a scientist, to read a math textbook like a mathematician, and really important for all of our kids to understand that content. So we put a number of goals in place that will support our students and their effort to interpret, understand the text that we all encounter every day. This year we've chosen to focus all of our student learning objectives. Every teacher, from our physical education teacher all the way to our English teacher, is going to have student learning objectives that are literacy based, but they're also content based. We put the two together. Within that, we've asked them to focus on one of these goal areas to help support our students gain knowledge from challenging text, understanding of content specific words and phrases, and we all know that they are available in each of our content subjects. Have our students pay attention to those details, identify evidence within the text so they can support themselves in a paper or in an argument, and then synthesize that complex information. But we all believe as a staff, 4K through 12, that's important for all of our students to be able to read and understand with confidence in any environment. This is a reading environment. Our world is a reading environment, and it's important for our students to leave Sevastopol confident in their skills.
We have a few other things that are certainly going to be a challenge as we go into this year. This is the year that educator effectiveness and principal effectiveness are implemented, and we've been doing a lot of training for that. It's a 3-year cycle. We use TeachScape, which is a web-based communication record-keeping compilation tool. We'll be doing training in that. All teachers complete a student learning outcome, a self-rating, and a professional practice goal every year. The results go up to the state through TeachScape and are warehoused in the secure WISE Dash so that principals and teachers can go in and see where their scores are, where the highs are, where the lows are, do some analysis of our scoring from educator effectiveness. So extensive training in 13-14, continuous training in 14-15, and we'll probably still be doing some training and tweaking as we go into 15-16. Assessment is a huge challenge for us this year as well, and that is because so many of the state assessments have changed. When we look at the assessment calendar, there really isn't a few weeks that go by that we aren't doing an assessment, preparing for an assessment, or analyzing assessment, and then we roll on to the next one. These are the assessments that are required by the state. New this year, an ACT product, Arise, will be given to all 9th graders in the fall and the spring. It will be given to 10th graders in the spring. And that's an addition, that's new from what we were doing before. ACT testing, all of our 11th graders in the spring. Smarter Balanced Assessment, which is connected to the state standards, that's mathematics and ELA. That's an online assessment, and that will be done in the spring. Then we revert back to the old WKCE, because we're going to do WKCE, Social Studies and Science, in the fall. So think about, we've got the Arise for the 9th graders, we roll into WKCE, we've got PALS assessment that we're doing with 4K, K, 1 and 2 this year in the fall, and it just keeps going. There's a new assessment for severely cognitively disabled special education students called the Dimensions of Learning. That also is an online assessment that will begin this year. There's a revised Access for ELS, which is an alternative assessment for our ESL students. And last but certainly not least, we won the lottery and we're testing NAEP in the 4th grade. So that's the new assessment for this year with that little tiny bit of WKCE in there this fall. NAEP is the National Assessment of Educational Progress, and it truly is a lottery. They choose nationwide a school here, a grade there, and they notify you. Say, you're doing NAEP. Just today we got the next installment, basically, of what we're going to need to do to go online, register our students in the 4th grade, and start getting the instructions about how we're going to do NAEP. So in a testing window, ours is 4th grade this year. In a testing window, you administer the NAEP, those scores all go up to the national level, and that's part of the testing that they use when they say, well, Singapore is doing this and such compared to what the United States is doing. So that's the NAEP. It's one of those things that gets thrown our way every now and then.
Thank you.
Some of you may not realize, but every year the school board sits down in July to look at what did we accomplish in the past year, what are the challenges that we have coming in the next year. And that, what you've heard tonight is kind of a short presentation of what they heard in July. What have we accomplished based on the goals we set last year, and what are the challenges coming our way in the next year? They look at those, they review the mission, and they establish new goals. So I just thought I would leave you with these pieces. The mission for the school district is to provide students with the knowledge, skills, and attitudes necessary to be lifelong learners and responsible citizens. And our staff takes this to heart. We have 5 goals. The first one is really that rounded student, that we want to make sure that our students can take the next step, the next step, the next step. Make those transitions from grade to grade, from seniors in high school to college or career, that they are always confident in terms of their academic preparation, their personal skills, and their social skills, so that they can make all of those transitions successfully. The board has a goal to create a facility plan for the school so that we can look at being a modern educational community campus. We kept this goal to recruit, develop, and retain quality and qualified professional and support staff. Kept the communications goal, ensure that all communications are consistent, transparent, and interactive, reaching the entire community. And the last one is to make the Sevastopol school campus the community center. So we're going to keep working on that one as well. And that's what drives us in the coming year. Thank you. Questions? Okay.
Thank you for that. Thank you, all 3 of you. That was an excellent, informative presentation, so thank you very much. And
Next is the budget presentation.
2014, 2015 budget presentation and hearing.
Oh, that would be me.
No rest for
I
the
need a
weary.
break, yeah. Maybe no rest. Thank you. Y'all know I find this stuff fascinating, and most people are just bored to tears, so sorry about this. This is what we're proposing for our 2014-2015 budget. And we do a little bit of review so you understand how it works. We have a lot of different funds. Fund 10 is really our operating fund. Those are the monies that we use to pay the bills to operate the school every day throughout the year. Fund 20 are special or federal categorical funds. For example, our special education expenses are in Fund 20. Fund 30 is debt service if we're paying off a loan. 40 capital, 50 food service, 60 student activity, and Fund 80 is community service, and that is a fund that I'll talk about. Our proposed budget for this year is proposing. We have $8,404,207 in estimated revenues, and we balanced it with $8,404,207 in expenditures. So, different from previous years, we are not proposing to use money out of the fund balance to balance our expenditures this year. If you divide those out into these 3 categories, instruction, support, and non-program, you can see how they look at each other proportionately. Instruction 49.2%, 34.1% for support, and 16.7% for non-program. But you say, what do those mean? And this is what it means. Instruction is everything related to the classroom, plus athletics. Non-program is a really odd term for what's included. That's our open enrollment. That's transfers to Fund 27 and Fund 38. It's non-open enrollment tuition if someone were coming here and paying us tuition, or if we were paying tuition somewhere, and it's our co-op sports programs. So those are the kinds of things that are in that non-program category. Support services, it's huge. All of our professional support, administration, board, transportation, the operations and maintenance, basically all of those things that make the building work and help teachers deliver instruction, all of that is in support services. So as you look at a comparison of those categories, instruction, support, and non-program, and then the total, the blue bar on the left is 2010-2011, the orange one is 11-12, The black dark brown one is 1213. The yellow one is 1314, just this past year. And then the green one is what we're proposing for the coming year's budget. You can see that proportionately they're about the same. Not a tremendous increase over one over the other. So I'm going to talk for a minute about revenues. That's the expenditure side. Revenues, we get state revenue, inter-district revenue, that's where another district sends us money. We get some federal revenue, local and other, like garage sale, workers' comp, those kinds of things. And we also, as you all are well aware, have to work within the revenue limit. So on this, in 1314, our revenue limit was $6,944,146. That is, we look at, and this is the total revenue limit, as we look at 1415, our revenue limit is the straight revenue limit without the additional funds to exceed the revenue limit. It's $5,833,354. We passed a referendum 2 years ago that allows us to exceed the revenue limit by $1,350,000. So these two numbers together, you can kind of compare to this number. This year also, though, we have some energy efficiency payments. And those we have to pay for, but we don't have to count those in our revenue limit. And so they're kind of added on the end. So it brings us to $7,364,033. And that's an increase of $419,887. Interesting, the energy efficiency is here, and also this is exactly $200,000 more than it was this year. 200, is that right, Cindy? 200? 200,000. So when you look at those two things, we're real close to where this difference is. And when you put it in the pie, this is how it looks in relationship to each other. Interesting, the percent. And so remember, we're not talking about real dollars. Well, we're talking about real dollars, but it's the percentage, the share. The local share in the proposed budget is less than the local share in the last year. The share of state, federal, interdistrict, and other all increased. So the percentages of state, federal, interdistrict, and other are higher. And the percent of local is lower. Now, in individual dollars, local's higher. These are higher as well. But we've seen somewhat of a shift because we know we're getting more E-rate, for example. We're getting a rural schools grant that we hadn't planned on before, which is, a federal source. So we've got those revenues in there, and they're reflected in the increases in those percentages. What affects the budget? And my number's a little different than the one you saw before because they count everybody that walks through the door, and I wait until I've got them in power school. 593. So there's a little bit of a difference, and actually we're all rooting for 600, and we've got a few more days. I think the significant thing on here, though, is if you compare this to, I did the math on the 516 students we had in 2011, 2012, and that's an increase of 8.5% in our enrollment in those 3 years. So a year and a half ago, I was talking about an uptick. And I said we need to have an uptick for a couple of years before I'll even think that it might be a trend. So we have had an uptick now for 3 years. Give it another year and I'll call it a trend. If we hit 600, I may back off on that. Fund 80 is community service, and for the last several years, we have levied for the community service fund $20,000 each year. They're very specific and limited uses of the community service fund. That includes education programs and services, training, recreation, cultural, athletic. We're proposing a Fund 80 levy, and with that, workshops and courses for adults like we did last year. The use of the facility for recreation, athletics, and cultural programs, and that's our facility supervisors. Maintain fields that are used by the community, support our community volunteers. So our budgeted expenditures in Fund 80 for 14-15 are $27,750, but the levy is $20,000. We have some Fund 80 money that's sitting back from other years, and so each year we're spending a bit more than the $20,000 in order to support the programs that we've put out there right now. So here is the bigger picture. The proposed tax levy is our general fund, $7,223,507. We have a tax chargeback, $1,022. The community service fund is $20,000. We have a debt service payment that is for the energy efficiency. That's $131,945. That is a 10-year loan, but we only pay it off for 9 years. Don't ask me why. But the first payment is due this March, $131,000. And so the total for taxing purposes is $7,376,474. And that rate, based on an assumption that property value is flat, not increased, not decreased, is $5.42. So we compare them. Don't be shocked by this, okay? This is what's proposed for the budget piece that you just saw. This is what our tax rate ended up this past year. A year ago, when we did the annual meeting, the rate for the budget that we were talking about then, and this is before we knew what the property value was, before the state had set it on some categorical aid and things like that, this was $5.24. But after all of those things happened, and we finally nailed everything down, it was $5.11. This $5.42 reflects that $131,000 for the energy efficiency project payback. And so there is an increase over what it would have been because of our energy efficiency project. So $5.42, and that assumes that property tax stays flat. Questions on that? And here's the big question. Last year, we used our forecast model and knew that, for example, our Fund 80 is $20,000 for each one of these years. And we added energy efficiency for the first time here, this payment. So this is that $131,000, $131,000, $131,000. Our referendum to exceed the revenue limit takes us to 2015-2016. This is the year where we are now. We have one more year of approval to exceed the revenue limit. This is basically our revenue limit, all of the funds in there. So when you add the $20,000, the $131,000, this is the $1,350,000. This is the revenue limit. This is the proposed budget for this year. I would like to be able to say, based on our forecast model, this is where we see it going in 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18. But we have a few things standing in the way. One, our enrollment has become a real wild card. Our current forecast model never predicted that we would have as many students as we do. But keep in mind, when they're open enrollment students, it's a flat amount that we get. It doesn't add to our enrollment that the state uses for its calculations. And so it's a bit of a math problem to calculate what increasing enrollment, open enrollment or new residents, is going to do to our revenue limit here. We also are at the end of a 2-year budget at the state level. We don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 years. Are they going to do something with the funding formula? Are they going to give us more than $75 a year for students? Is there going to be a new governor? There are so many questions that to try to predict these things right now would simply be a guess. And I'm afraid it would be misleading. So, transparency and full disclosure, two really big question marks right there. We will be redoing our forecast model in November. In November. And we'll work with them to talk about all of these unknowns, the if-thens, so that we will have a better idea going forward. But as I stand here today, anything that I would tell you here would be a guess. It wouldn't be good information. So that's why we have the question marks. Questions on my questions? Okay, all funds. This is the entire budget. General fund, $8,404,207. Our special projects, remember that's the special education piece, $1,247,905. Our debt service, that's our energy efficiency payoff, $131,944.59. We have no capital projects in this. Food service is increased over past years because we're adding a breakfast program. And so that number is up, but at the same time their receipts are going up. $306,818, and of course Fund 80 Community Service, $27,750, with a grand total of $10,118,624.59. Oh, questions? It's the end.
I have a question.
Sure.
To what do you attribute the increased enrollment? We do have a baby boom here in Sevastopol.
It's not really a baby boom. There are people moving back to Sevastopol who may have gone somewhere else for a while and decided it's time to come home. As a matter of fact, we've hired several teachers who moved back with their children, who are graduates from Sevastopol or who have family ties in Door County. Our open enrollment is based, somebody can jump in and correct me if you want to. Our open enrollment is based exclusively on the reputation of this school. It's small, people are kind, people are generous, there's academic rigor, and our students outperform given the supports that we provide every other school in the county.
So a lot of the increase is from the open enrollment? Or?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. We have a net, what is the net? We must lose some from open enrollment, right?
I think there's still an imbalance in it, but boy, it is really closed.
It's actually reversed. We used to have about 30 coming in and 80 going out. Now we've got 80 some coming in and 30 going out.
Oh,
Yeah. The community should really feel great that people want their children to come to school here, even though they may not be able to find some place to live here. And, you know, people are looking. I think that Sevastopol is a real draw for people. It's a good place to live, it's a good place to work, and it's a great place to raise your children.
I wish I had some.
There are days we would loan you a few.
Can't help you with that, lad.
You can only help yourself now.
Any other questions? Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on down to item 10, approval of the 2014-2015 school tax levy.
And you're looking for a motion.
And we're looking for a motion, and I guess we need to spell out the various categories here and the amount of the levy and total at the end, so. Motion by anyone?
I would move to approve the total school tax levy of $7,376,474.
Okay.
Second.
All right. And do we need to spell out
I have it.
for the, okay.
Could you add that to the motion?
I will.
And any discussion on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. Next item, grant board authority to sell excess personal property.
I'll move
Do
to
we-
grant the board authority to sell excess property.
I'll second that.
And any discussion or questions on that?
What property are we talking about? What does it mean when you say excess personal property? Are we
The
talking about
buses
old
that we're no
computers?
longer using,
Okay.
pianos, those things that we generally put in the garage sale.
Sorry about that.
There are so many things that could be said. So these really are the things that we declare surplus and that we need permission to sell.
Any other questions or discussion on that item? All right, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion is carried. And next item, grant board authority to transfer sale of property. I'm not sure I know what that means, so,
This is real property.
okay, oh, real property.
This is if someone needed a piece of land that the school owned for some purpose, that the school could declare surplus, that the board would, once the community's authority to transfer the sale of that property if necessary.
Is there property in question?
There actually have been some conversations about the property over off Dunn Road. Some of that may be helpful to the water
Sevastopol
treatment.
Sanitary District.
Thank you, Sevastopol Sanitary District.
Why are we granting permission in advance of a proposal?
Because if they come with a proposal, we would like to know what the options are, and without, this doesn't say they're going to sell it, this says that they have been granted the authority to do that if they need to.
Would the issue come up at a regular board meeting on the community members?
Yes.
We could ask
Absolutely.
about that, so-
All right, could I have a motion then on that item?
I would move to grant the board authority to transfer the sale of real property.
Second.
And any other discussion or questions on that item? All right, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And motion is carried. Next item, establish semi-monthly board meetings. Do we have some background on that?
Sure. The board has for some time had one regular meeting a month. With the weight of items that need to go before the board, they would like to establish 2 meetings a month, 2 regular meetings. And since those meetings are established at the annual meeting, it's on the agenda for a semi-monthly regular board meeting.
Year round?
Yeah.
Yes,
But I think they might cancel when we can.
This would be as needed. We obviously aren't gonna meet twice a month just to have a meeting. And in some cases, it may not be necessary, but we are finding that sometimes our meetings get very, very long, and we kind of question how productive we are when it gets to be 11 or 12 o'clock at night. So we would like to have the option to be able to meet twice a month as needed.
All right, so I would entertain a motion. Do we need to,
Should be a motion on that one.
so we would need a motion to act on that?
I would so move.
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any other discussion or questions on that item? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion is carried. Next item, establish the 2014-2015 school board salaries. 2013-14 salaries were $235 per month per board meeting, plus a $50 per diem
Per
for,
board member.
oh, I'm sorry, per board member, and a $50 per diem for each meeting attended outside the district, plus mileage to and from meetings out of the district in accordance with federal guidelines.
Madam Chairman, I would like to make a motion that the 2013-14 salaries are $245 per month per board member, everything else to be exactly the same as last year.
I'll second that. That may need to be 14-15.
14-15, right.
Oh, excuse me, 14-15, yes. The years go by so fast.
In, okay, and a second by Kathy?
Yeah.
Any discussion on that? Questions?
Do you guys live on that?
Sure. We're thrifty.
All right.
No other discussion on that? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And next item, establish the 2015 annual meeting time, place, and date, and grant board authority change if necessary. It is currently, what, the third Tuesday, or fourth
The
Tuesday of
fourth
August?
Of August.
That would be the 25th of August, 2015.
And do we need a motion to establish that?
Don't have to do that by motion, just announcement.
So, the 2015 annual meeting will be scheduled for August 25th, 2015, subject to board authority to change if necessary or required. Any other items? Any other?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, okay, who's second?
I did.
Laddie. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And meeting is adjourned.
Yes.
Thank you, Lynn.